So how much does autism cost? We have 5 kids and 2 on the spectrum. Ezra is 7 years old with more severe autism. He's level 3, which just means he needs a little bit more help. And Simon has more mild autism. He's 3 years old and he's level 1 and needs a little bit less help than Ezra. There are mistakes that we've made that will cost you thousands if you make them.
So in this video, we're going to talk about some costs associated with having a child with autism. The average, according to the CDC, for ABA therapy is $120 an hour. So if you extrapolate that out for one child, how much our kids are doing on ABA every day, that's $136,000. Depending on what insurance you have will determine also what type of a cutback you'll get as far as that goes. And depending on what state you live in. For speech therapy, we're paying $300 an hour for our speech, and we were doing that once a week. So extrapolate that out for the year, that's $14,000 roughly a year for speech therapy. Our kids, they don't do well with gluten. Dairy is on and off, so they have a pretty strict diet, and so you typically end up spending about double on your diet for your kids as well. So in this video, we're going to talk about some things that will hopefully help you keep those expenses down. We've been in a position where we had $65,000 in credit card debt dealing with autism, so we don't want you to be there. And make sure and hang out till the end because we have an awesome announcement that will help you a ton as far as your finances and other things regards to autism.
There are mistakes that we've made that will cost you thousands if you make them. So we want to share this with you and just be vulnerable. And yes, you can put in the comments how you're like, I can't believe they did that.
Lots of mistakes can be made, and we want to help you avoid those.
Our experience is within the United States, so that's what we'll be focusing on. It really depends what state you're in. For example, Indiana, Colorado, and California, they all will cover 100% of ABA for your child with autism. And there are many states like New York, Florida, Illinois that have a certain amount of money that they give to the child every year. But the number varies between state. Some are $36,000 and some are up to $50,000 a year. The state that we live in does not give money, but it does now, just recently, just the past couple years, require every insurance to cover 100% of ABA. We were super excited. We thought, oh, insurance is going to cover 100%.
And it was really good insurance.
Yeah, it was good insurance. It was. Until we read the fine print. And it said, oh, well, yeah, it's 100% except for a copay. And usually when you think of a copay, you don't think very much money, right? You think, oh, it's just an extra $10, $20. Well, because ABA is technically a specialist, we had to pay $50 every time the therapist came to the house, which for Ezra at this time, he had 2 therapists a day, 5 days a week. Do the math. That ended up costing us $2,000 a month for ABA just in copays. And so I got on the phone with different local charities and things like that, and I asked, hey, are there any grants and scholarships for autism, for ABA, for speech therapy, occupational therapy, anything? I was just reaching out, seeing what I could find. And I was told on the phone by people who should have known that there weren't any. There are no scholarships for ABA. There are no grants for speech therapy for autistic people. And I put down that phone and I was like, this is unbelievable. I am going to prove them wrong. And we did. There was actually a grant that helped Ezra. And it was amazing because it was actually a grant specifically for autistic children before the diagnosis. Because guess what? There's waiting lists for everything. To get your diagnosis and to get a provider. But if you see a preschool that you like or a provider that you may want to use, just put your child's name on the waiting list just in case, because those waiting lists can be super long. Ours is about 6 months long, and that's one of the shorter ones. As I applied for grants and scholarships online for Ezra's therapy, I discovered that the really big businesses never called me back, never emailed me back. But the smaller ones that were local, they would reach out and say, okay, how local are you? And how close are you? And one thing that I did, and I don't know if this helped us get the grant or not, but I thought it would make it more personal. I got a real envelope, not an email, a real envelope, paper envelope with a stamp on it, and I put pictures of Ezra in it with the documentation that they needed. We were able to get grants and scholarships for several years that covered all of those copays. And that was huge for us because an extra $2,000 a month is not easy to come by. There are some states like New Jersey that don't require insurances to pay, and they don't give out any yearly money for ABA, but they do have grants that you can proactively apply for. And so it is harder to get, but they do have grants just for that. With one insurance that we had, they actually paid for Ezra's speech therapy, 100%, except for the copays. I was so grateful that we continued with that speech therapy because that speech therapist was awesome. And she ended up diagnosing our little 2-year-old who's nonverbal with apraxia of speech. So that was really important for us to take him to not only ABA, but to take him to speech and to take him to occupational therapy. He even did physical therapy for quite a while.
Yeah, because how long when did he walk?
He didn't walk till he was about 18 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's with physical therapy.
Yeah, that's with.
That was with, because he started physical therapy when he was 12 months. He could barely crawl. He kind of scooted around, kind of rolled around. We were a year old, and we wanted to help him progress and hit those milestones. So that's when we started physical therapy. I remember one time being on the phone with another different insurance that we had, and I asked, hey, I've got a child with a diagnosis of autism. What does my insurance cover? And that's just a really smart thing to do, is just call them, talk to a real person, and ask them what is covered and what isn't. And then I remembered, oh yeah, Ezra also has a diagnosis of apraxia of speech. It's not on the paperwork yet, but I mentioned it to her, and she got quiet on the phone. And I was like, hello, are you there? And she's like, well, I'm not supposed to tell you this. You know you've got a good person on the phone when they're saying, I'm not supposed to tell you this. And I'm like, listening, what aren't you supposed to tell me? What she told me was completely unbelievable. This is what she said. Don't put on the paperwork that your son has apraxia of speech, because then he won't qualify for speech therapy. I was completely blown away. To me, I felt like, oh, he might actually get more therapy if he has another diagnosis, but no, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, because there's all sorts of little caveats with insurance. The more you work with insurance, it's just a pain sometimes. Figure out exactly what they want and what they need and what they cover, because little things like that, I mean, we wouldn't have had, if we had done that incorrectly, then, or if that lady hadn't been nice. And that's another thing. Holly's really nice with people on the phone. I'm not so much.
So I'll usually do the nice talking. And then when we need to get something from them and they're not
cooperating,
being good, then he gets the phone.
Yeah, so then I'm the bad cop.
He's the negotiator.
He wouldn't have gotten any speech therapy.
Yeah, no speech therapy.
So that can be a difference of thousands of dollars if it's not done right. So you've really got to know your insurance and what they do. And we've had many insurances over the years. They are trying to pay as little as possible, and you're trying to get them to pay as much as possible. So you're going to have a lot of battles.
Another thing that has always been a big concern for us with Ezra is his safety at night. He's an escape artist. He will run away and not look back. In the middle of the night, a lot of times he would actually scream. As you can see here, he's kind of awake and flustered. Sometimes he would scream and yell and be happy. So a lot of times we were kind of confused, like, how do we help him get a good night's rest in the most natural way possible? And one thing that I did a lot of research on was to try and find him a safety bed. And so I applied for grants, and we got one grant. It wasn't very much money, so it was like a cheaper safety bed, like a tent. And he actually went through 5 safety beds. Our advice is talk to people who know what they're doing, who've already done things that you're trying to do. Please put in the comments how much autism costs if you're in a different country. We really want to know.
So now time for that exciting announcement that we've been waiting for. We are in collaboration with several of the YouTube channels and starting a nonprofit for the autistic community called the Autism Alliance. It's going to include one-on-one coaching and help from parents and people who know. It's going to include financial guidance and help figuring out insurances and different grants and different things that can help you. And also, it's going to have world-class training from the best people out there who are living it in their life right now. So head over to theautismalliance.org to join us there and be a part of this community. The autismalliance.org YouTube channel, that'll be linked in here as well. Make sure and subscribe to that, and we will see you at the Autism Alliance. Thanks for joining us.